Why I hate bisexual women. Hashtag not all. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I absolutely can't stand bisexual women.
What?
Okay, I'll confess to making the title of this video clickbait, which is why I say hashtag not all. I have to first make it abundantly clear that I am not referring to anything besides probably a particularly small fraction of bisexual women when I say this. Most bisexual women are probably totally fine. I'm also definitely not saying this because I have some axe to grind with an ex or something, because I am 110% gay and have never even touched a vagina. Though I did try one time under heavy pressure from a stripper who wanted to convert me into being straight when I was 19. But that's another story for another day. Here's the thing. I would say probably most of my female friends are bisexual, and most of them have not done this certain specific irritating thing. But over the past 20 years of being an open homosexual, it's something I have seen happen repeatedly over the course of knowing a few of these women. So I want to make clear to my audience how it works and why it is annoying. Don't worry, straight dudes. As Wizard of Cause mentioned on his recent live stream, I am fully aware that bisexual women are more than appreciated by the male heterosexual audience. But what I am talking about is something that I think he might have a bit of experience with personally, which is what can happen after bisexual women go through a spell where they decide, for whatever reason, that they are finished with men. You see, very commonly, after either a string of failed romances with dudes or the woman having an intense romance with a man that ends in angry heartbreak or divorce, these women decide to temporarily go full lesbian, or at least get really into defining as queer and base their entire lives around it, often adopting the labels of pansexual and non-binary or something, at least these days. Were this 15 or 20 years ago, they'd probably just shave their head, get their tongue pierced, and get a tattoo that says dyke or something, which they would later cover up. But these days, it's even more irritating because they'll pile on some Tumblr identities for oppression points, not just to fit in with the cool oppressed kids and sit at their victimhood lunch table, but more so. These women are trying to actively separate themselves from heterosexuality by overcompensating with an outwardly obvious queer identity, often one that doesn't even really make sense, like non-binary pansexual, as if it makes them even more queer than full-blown homosexuals. They think they're even more queer than lesbians half the time. And then do you know what happens? Maybe you guessed it. These women, who are usually mostly straight anyway, end up swearing off heterosexuality and hanging around my friend circles. And then once there's enough of them around, some power-hungry lesbian can end up taking the space over, banning any gay man who crosses her from online forums and such, and calling them all misogynists. You see, there's very few real lesbians. Sorry, not sorry for saying so. I would say no more than 25% of women who identify as lesbians will last longer than 10 years defining as a lesbian. And out of the ones who do, I would say more than half of them are women who have some sort of deeply ingrained phobia towards men, usually due to abuse. And those are pretty easy to spot if you're male, of course, especially if you've been around the block in queer land. While there are definitely several cool lesbians out of the real lesbians who have no problem with men and often have primarily male friend groups, there's also the creepy, power-hungry feminist lesbians who you really need to watch out for. I am not entirely sure what their problems are, and I cannot say it is anything uniform. Some of them, I think, just kind of want to fuck gay men. But they tend to have a very weird control freaky messiah complex which demands that they be the leader of every LGBT organization they ever come into contact with in their entire lives. And they can seemingly genuinely convince themselves it's because they know what's best for the entire LGBT community, including us plebeian gay men. Still, She's a woman, of course, and she can more easily identify with other women, of course. So when LGBT spaces become overrun with the aforementioned type of bisexual women who are mainly just retreating from their heterosexual past, a very fucked up thing happens. Instead of having fun with our crass jokes, semi public sex, and various other expressions of full blown faggotry, the head lesbian starts trying to make sure everybody is feeling safe and that their needs are met. Because if she doesn't, well, she won't get to be in charge anymore. So basically, majority rules and female votes count for 1.5 to the head lesbian because she takes women's concerns more seriously. So you get enough of these bisexual women around, and gay men become second-class citizens. In radical fairy spaces, which were traditionally some of the most extreme homosexual environments for gay men, ritualistic jerk-off circles end up getting replaced with heart circles more and more, which basically end up as safe spaces for these heterosexual refugee bisexual women to share boner-killing stories about their abusive ex-husband, half of which are probably untrue anyway. But once this environment is fostered, victimhood becomes a competitive sport. Even worse, some gay guys take the bait as well, and you have sexy guys who you thought seemed cool all of a sudden freaking out and telling somebody that they made them feel unsafe because they gave him a friendly ass pat when he got up from the fire. Party over. You see, I can say it very simply. When bisexual women have major issues with men, they don't always just take it out to some feminist sewing circle or potluck to complain about it until they decide to get over their bullshit. They often take it to queer culture. And then that spills over into faggot culture. And then it becomes a gigantic man-hating mess that people like myself end up having to clean up. So here's a message to bisexual women. If you have never done anything similar to this, good God, thank you. Thank you. Please don't. And if you have some bad experiences with men, please find yourself a good counselor who is not a fucking feminist. And for the bisexual women who might have done something similar to this, well, I'm Prince of Queens, and I'm onto you. Eat shit. And for the record, yes, I do tell straight guys the type of bullshit you have said about them in heart circles, so perhaps you might want to consider quitting with the lies. Karma is a total fucking faggot. That's all for tonight. Drop me a comment, help me out on Patreon if you think I'm cool, and stay tuned.